My name is Detective Pierce. 20 years in the department, and I've learned that most things that unsettle you have a logical explanation. Until they don't. The call came in at 2:37 a.m. The night operator said a local radio tower had gone active, despite being off air for nearly a decade. No staff. No license. No reason. But the transmitter at WPRT 98.3 had started broadcasting. A voice. Male. Calm. Repeating the same sentence over and over. You're not alone, Pierce. We hear you. They didn't know how my name got on air. I didn't either. By the time I reached the site, fog had rolled in from the river. The station sat at the end of an old access road, a squat brick building with a faded sign and a single tower rising behind it, its red light blinking through the mist. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything was coated in dust. Old recording reels, microphones, half-broken switchboards. A thin hum filled the air, like static bleeding through silence. And then, faintly, from the corner speaker, "Don't stop listening." I froze. The voice wasn't recorded. It reacted, like it knew I had entered the room. I moved toward the main console. The broadcast light above it flickered weakly, the red on-air sign glowing through grime. But the equipment was disconnected. Power cables torn. Circuit boards missing. It shouldn't have been transmitting at all. Still, the sound persisted. A whisper between frequencies, breaking, reforming, shifting pitch. I leaned in closer, tracing the cables. They ran under the floorboards. That's when I noticed footprints. Small, bare, trailing through the dust, leading to the sound booth. The booth's window was fogged, but inside I could see a chair. Someone had been sitting there recently. The cushion was still indented. A faint warmth lingered in the air. On the desk lay a single cassette tape. No label. Just a handwritten word, barely legible in the dim light. Tonight. I reached for it, slid it into the old player beside the mic, and pressed play. For a few seconds, only static. Then a sound. Breathing. And then, my own voice. "If you're hearing this, I didn't make it back." I froze again. That was me. My cadence. My tone. But I'd never recorded it. The transmission outside wavered. Then the voice from the speaker returned, closer this time. Not through the airwaves, but from the intercom behind me. "You shouldn't have come alone." The tape stopped. The room went silent. Then click. The on-air light flared bright red again. And a new voice spoke. "Stay tuned, Detective. We're just getting started." The air inside the station had weight. Old dust and ozone, the smell of equipment that shouldn't still be running. I pulled the tape from the player and slipped it into an evidence bag. Then I checked my watch. 3:04 a.m. But the second hand didn't move. Just stopped. I shook it once. Still frozen. That's when I noticed the faint vibration under my boots, a low hum coming from beneath the floor. Like something mechanical, deep under the building. The tower outside wasn't supposed to have power. The city cut its grid connection years ago. I followed the cables trailing through the dust, past the control desk and into a hallway lined with storage doors. Each marked with fading numbers, 1A, 1B, 1C. Only 1D had a light under the door. I pushed it open. Inside was a cluttered archive room, shelves stacked with boxes of old broadcast logs and reel tapes. The air was colder here, still humming faintly. On the desk, a recorder sat half disassembled, its reels slowly turning on their own. No power cord. No operator. Just turning. I picked up the logbook beside it. The last written entry was dated April 7, 1987. Ink smeared by water damage, but I could still make out the handwriting. Interference during night broadcast 2:17 a.m. Voice responded to technician's input. Frequency looped back. Unidentified source continues transmission without operator. The next line, scrawled hastily. Do not answer it. I felt the hum again, stronger. The reels clicked, stopped, then reversed. The machine began playing backward. Through the hiss of static, a voice emerged, low, distorted, words bending in and out of sense. It sounded like a live feed running in reverse time. I leaned closer, trying to catch fragments. Back again. You're still there. We never stopped recording. Then, clearly, my name. Not shouted. Whispered, right against the mic. Pierce. The room went silent. No hum. No movement. Just my own breath echoing off the walls. I switched off the recorder and looked around. Every other tape box in the room was labeled with a date. Except one. A black case with no markings. I opened it. Inside, a reel, neatly wound, with a single tag. Broadcast log, tomorrow. The ink wasn't faded. It was fresh. I packed it carefully and turned to leave. But the hallway lights flickered. And through the open doorway of the main studio, I saw the red glow of the on-air sign again. It hadn't been lit a minute ago. Then, a new sound. The faint pop of a microphone switching on. And a voice. Not mine. Not the same one from before. Female. Calm. Slightly delayed. Good evening. You're listening to WPRT. This is the late night broadcast. Tonight's guest, Detective Jonathan Pierce. I stood frozen in the hall. The air around me buzzed, as if the station itself was drawing breath. The mic hissed softly. Detective, are you there? I didn't answer. But something inside the booth moved, a shadow shifting behind the glass, brushing past the mic stand. We hear you. Then silence. The hum returned, low and steady, like the station was waiting. By morning the fog had cleared, but my head hadn't. The tape, the voice, my own name whispered through a dead broadcast, none of it added up. I'd seen stage transmissions before, hoaxes made by vandals and bored kids, but this was different. Too deliberate. Too aware. At 8 a.m., I met with the communications office downtown. They still kept the city's radio frequency registry. When I asked about WPRT 98.3, the clerk frowned, tapping on his keyboard. That call sign was decommissioned in 1989, he said. Tower dismantled, property condemned. Why? I didn't answer right away. He scrolled further, his face tightening. Actually, there's a note here. The frequency's been silent for decades, but it's still pinging. Background noise, maybe. Nothing official. Background noise. That's what they called it when a signal refused to die. By noon, I was back at the station site. It looked smaller in daylight, just a brick shell and a tower swaying against a washed-out sky. Still, the red beacon at the top pulsed faintly, out of sync with the others on the ridge. I'd brought a small frequency scanner this time, something portable. It was supposed to measure active transmissions across shortwave and FM. When I turned it on, the screen went blank for a moment, then scrolled a single phrase. Signal source not recognized. Then it beeped, one sharp tone, and the numbers locked in place. 98.3 MHz. Still live. But when I turned off the scanner and switched to my radio, there was nothing. Just the faint, low static that hangs between stations. And beneath it, I swear, something breathing. Inside, the air felt heavier than before. The dust on the floor was undisturbed, except for my own footprints from the night before. The cassette player sat where I'd left it, the logbook open on the desk. I took out the new reel marked "Broadcast Log, Tomorrow," and examined it again. No label maker, no catalog number, just the word "Tomorrow," written by hand in black ink that hadn't yet faded. It was cold to the touch. Against my better judgment, I found an old reel-to-reel player on the back shelf, brushed off the dust, and loaded it. The machine came alive instantly, humming like it had never stopped running. For a few seconds static. Then a voice. "Mine. If you're hearing this, you've come back. You shouldn't have." I paused the tape, checked my recorder. It was definitely playing audio, not feedback. I pressed play again. "You think you can find where the signal starts, but it's not outside. It's in the air. It's in every wire. It's in here now." A sound followed, faint tapping, like someone knocking on the microphone glass. Then breathing, slow and close. "You're not supposed to be listening, Pierce. You're supposed to be transmitting." The tape cut off. Silence. I backed away, feeling the hum under the floor again, stronger, pulsing. The lights flickered once. Then, all at once, the on-air sign lit up. Live. And a familiar voice filled the studio speakers, calm, steady, almost friendly. "Good afternoon. You're tuned to WPRT, the voice that never sleeps. Today, we continue our story about the man who couldn't stop listening." My hand hovered over the power switch, but the equipment wasn't even plugged in. It was running without current. Broadcasting without power. "Stay on the line, detective. We're almost done recording." I ran outside. The signal tower hummed faintly in the wind, its wires trembling like strings under tension. At the base, half buried under weeds, I saw a door, metal, sealed with a rusted padlock. Cables disappeared into the ground beside it. Something clicked behind the door. A soft voice, muffled low, repeating, "You're not alone, Pierce." Then, once more, in unison, like more than one person whispering together, "We hear you." I came back the next night. Not because I wanted to, because I couldn't stop thinking about that door. About the sound that came from behind it. I told myself it was just old wiring. Maybe an emergency generator still running underground. But the truth was simpler, and worse. I needed to hear it again. The rain hadn't stopped all day. By the time I reached the station, the ground around the tower had turned to mud. My flashlight caught the thin reflection of the metal hatch, half swallowed by the earth. The padlock was already broken. Someone had been here. I pulled the door open. A wave of cold, dry air rose up, air that hadn't moved in years. A narrow staircase led down, steep and uneven. The deeper I went, the less sound there was. No echo. No hum. Just the soft tap of my boots on concrete. At the bottom was a corridor, narrow, lined with thick cables. The smell of iron and old static filled the space. Somewhere deeper, something clicked rhythmically, a machine turning, steady as a heartbeat. The corridor opened into a small underground room. It looked like a transmission hub, a circular space with a ring of old broadcast consoles, wires running into the walls, red bulbs glowing faintly under layers of dust. In the center, on a small desk, was a reel-to-reel recorder. Still running. Still recording. The reel turned slowly, feeding a second tape, one marked with the same black ink as before. Only this one didn't say tomorrow. It said now. I stepped closer. The recorder crackled, then played back a faint hiss. And beneath it, the sound of my own footsteps. Not from before, from now. Every movement I made echoed through the machine a half-second later. Then a voice layered beneath it. A whisper. "You're in the loop, Pierce." I froze. My flashlight flickered once, then went out. For a moment, the only light came from the red bulbs along the wall, pulsing faintly. "Keep listening," the voice said. "You're almost through." The reel's reversed direction. I heard myself breathing through the speakers. And then, another voice. Male, older. Calm. The same one from the first night. "This broadcast was never meant for air. It's a test of the emergency frequency. If you can hear it, you are part of it." The hum began again, deep, metallic, coming from the walls. My flashlight flickered back to life. There were photographs tacked along the far side of the room, old, faded, warped by moisture. All of them taken inside this same underground space. Same chair. Same desk. Same recorder. Different people sitting where I stood. Each one looking straight into the camera. The last photos showed me. Not smiling. Just standing there. Exactly where I was. The broadcast cut out. Then a new voice came through the speakers, faint, distant, like it was calling from the surface. "Pierce, do you copy? This is dispatch. We got your request for backup, but we can't locate your signal. Where are you transmitting from?" I grabbed my radio, pressed the button. Nothing. The voice kept talking. "Pierce? If you can hear this, say something." Then, quietly, the same line echoed through the room's speakers, but slightly delayed. "Pierce? If you can hear this, say something." It was the same message, looping through the broadcast system, not live. I wasn't hearing dispatch. I was hearing the recording of me trying to answer. The reel-to-reel recorder clicked again. The tape stopped. On the screen beside it, dimly lit, the digital time code reset itself. Counting backward. I reached for the power switch, but there wasn't one. The machine hummed, feeding the tape back onto its reel. Then, in that same steady, calm voice I heard, "This concludes tonight's broadcast. Stay tuned for the next transmission, scheduled for..." A pause. A click. Then the timestamp. 22 minutes ago. The static swallowed everything. The static didn't fade this time. It just changed. Like a slow breath behind the white noise, steady and deliberate. It wasn't coming from the machine anymore. It was everywhere, bleeding through my radio, through the wiring, through the walls themselves. The air felt heavy, as if the signal had substance, like it was pressing against my skin. Every light flickered in rhythm with that invisible pulse. I should have left. I should have climbed those stairs and sealed that hatch behind me. But instead I found myself reaching for the microphone on the desk. It was cold, covered in dust and fingerprints that didn't belong to me. When I pressed the button, the static grew louder, almost eager. "This is Detective Michael Pierce," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I'm beneath the old broadcast tower on Route 16. If anyone can hear this..." The response was instant. "We hear you, Pierce." It was my own voice. Perfectly clear. But it wasn't coming from the recorder. It was transmitting back through the speakers. "We hear you," it repeated. "Don't stop. Keep going." The lights dimmed again. A low hum began to build beneath the static, deep, like the vibration of something enormous waking up. The air smelled of burnt metal. And then, the machines turned on by themselves. Every console lit up, glowing with soft orange light. Old signal meters began to move. Numbers scrolled across a cracked monitor, forming coordinates that shifted too fast to read. The signal wasn't just being received anymore. It was broadcasting. And I was the source. I tried pulling the plug from the wall, but there were no cords, no power lines. The machines weren't connected to anything. They were running off something else. Then the reel-to-reel began to spin again, slowly. This time, no voice came through. Only a faint, rhythmic sound. Heartbeat. Mine. It matched perfectly. You understand now. The voice whispered through the speakers, calm, deliberate, closer than before. The broadcast doesn't need towers. It doesn't need power. It only needs a voice willing to stay. Something cold touched my shoulder. I turned, nothing. But when I looked back at the wall, a faint reflection in the glass showed me standing at the microphone, and something else behind me. Tall. Human-shaped. Completely still. It leaned close to the mic and spoke. Stay tuned. The sound slammed into my skull like pressure underwater. Every light in the room burst, glass raining down in the dark. The tape spun faster and faster until it snapped, tangling itself around the reels. I fell to the floor, clutching my head, and realized the static wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It was inside me. A low hiss in my ears, perfectly even, perfectly endless. When I finally opened my eyes, I wasn't in the room anymore. Or maybe I was, just not then. The consoles were clean. The dust was gone. The air was warm, electric. And a red light glowed above the microphone. On air. The speakers crackled to life one last time. And through them, I heard my own voice, calm, steady, practiced. Good evening, listeners. This is Detective Michael Pierce, and you're tuned to Frequency Zero. Broadcasting live from nowhere, for whoever's left to hear. My mouth didn't move. The voice spoke on its own. Outside, through a crack in the wall, I saw the sky. It wasn't night anymore. It wasn't morning either. It was something in between, an endless twilight where time didn't seem to move. The hum settled into silence. Then a click. The broadcast continued. And somewhere, far away, someone's old radio, maybe forgotten in an attic, maybe left running in a basement, crackled awake and played my words for the very first time. Stay tuned.